I mean, you have a grandchild. That's Ashley. No, that's Lori.
They've been saving.
Let's start down. No, Josh is married. A dog. I have a dog too.
Okay.
I didn't look after I responded. At work, she got a new job.
I want your phone number too.
No.
Hi, how are you? I'm good. Glad to see you. I'm sorry for Hi. Good.
Sir, you've got the live stream going now. You're standing in front of the camera. Thank you. Try it one more time.
Not that one. Hi, how are you, Bryce? I'm good.
I've done this already with times.
I know. I just asked.
One time, that's the time.
Oh, well. I'm sorry for the circumstance, but yes, it's nice to see you.
I know.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wait until 12:30 in case anyone comes. My grandmother used to say, "Don't make anyone who's on time for a funeral late." So.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yes.
I'm always on Saturday.
I know. Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you put your cell phones to silent mode at this time? The funeral will be conducted by Rabbi Jeffrey Weil and also Rabbi Asri. I'm sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. Rabbi Gershon Seif from Moments Hospice will also be coming up. Sorry.
We begin with the mitzvah of kriya. Kriya means tearing, and in the Bible, when something calamitous or shocking would happen to one of our biblical forebears, they would do an act of kriya, an act of tearing. Something sad would happen, they would tear over their hearts, in a sense exposing their raw, vulnerable, wounded hearts. And so I'll ask Anne's 3 children to rise now. I'll approach in a moment, and we will recite the blessing, or they'll recite the blessing, acknowledging God as the Dayan HaEmet, the judge of truth. It's a very difficult formulation, very difficult, really, theology to express at times of sadness, to acknowledge and really affirm that God is a judge of emet, of truth, even at times that when that faith might be shaken.
So let's put it together.
Adonai ma Adam v'tida ehu, ben enosh v'techashvehu. Adam v'hebel yitzkama, yamav k'tzel uver b'vuk yitzitz v'chalaf, la'erev yivalel v'yavesh. Tashev enosh adaka v'tomer shuvu v'nei Adam. These are the words of the psalmist saying, Adonai, eternal God, what are we that you have regard for us, and what are we that you would even be mindful of us? We're all of us just a breath. Our days are a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning it shoots up and is renewed, and in the evening, in other words, the evening of all of our lives, that grass fades and withers. But God, you cause all of us to return unto dust, saying, Shuvu and Adam, return, O mortal ones. Would that we were wise, would that we understood whither we go from here, from when we die, we carry nothing with us, not our riches, not our glory. But God, you say, Shmor Tamur Eishar, mark the wholehearted, behold the upright. Those are the ones who shall find shalom, who shall find peace in the end. And friends, as we all know, we gather today to remember one, mourn the loss of, and celebrate the life of one who was Tam Yashar. She was wholehearted, and she was upright. She was a matriarch, and Kopech. You'll find the 23rd Psalm in our handouts. We'll read that together in a moment. I'll recite it in Hebrew first. Adonai ro'i lo esar. Dino desha yarbitzeni amei minachot yinahaleni nafshi yeshavev. Yancheni b'magle tzedek l'man shemo. Yanki elech v'yetz amavet lo irara ki atad imadi. Shivtecha mishantecha hema kinachumuni. Taroch v'nai shulchan neget sorai. Dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi roya. Aktov v'chesed yirfuni kol yimei chayav. V'shavti b'beit Adonai l'orach yamim. We read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Esa inai el harim me'an yavo Ezri me'im Adonai osei shamayim ba'aretz. The 121st Psalm. Esa inai, lift up mine eyes up to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from the eternal God, osei shamayim ba'aretz, the one who made and makes heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector does not slumber. Behold, the Shomer Israel, the protector of Israel, the keeper of Israel, neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. May the sun not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. May God guard you from all harm. May God guard your soul, your going out and coming forth, now and forever. The third chapter of Kohelet, or Ecclesiastes, also presents actually a notion that is sometimes hard to accept, that everything under the sun is unfolding in a way that it ought to unfold. That's also kind of challenging for us because we know what happens under the sun. Those who have lived it all, sometimes things unfold in a positive way, sometimes in a negative way. But our tradition guides us in this direction, that everything is following a certain course. So difficult perhaps for us to understand it as mortals, but our tradition guides us in that direction. For everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot that which is planted, a time to tear down, a time to build up, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to grieve, a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time when we must refrain from our embraces, a time to seek, a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to discard, a time to tear, as we just did, a time to sow, a time for silence, and a time to speak. And so we speak words in memory of Anne Kopech. So we are now in this special, really sad time in the Jewish calendar, the saddest time in the Jewish calendar, actually. It's the 3 weeks leading up to Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. It commemorates destructions and catastrophes, particularly of the two temples in ancient times. Very sad. For the temples were not merely a place that we offered sacrifices. They're not merely a place where religious functionaries, Levites, and Kohanim, priests, fulfilled their obligations. The temples did much more than that, actually. The temples provided the Israelites, us, with the opportunity to reach our highest potential. Temple service, by the bringing of our sacrifices, set us on proper paths in our lives. Temple service, those temples, those structures, led us to our highest potentials, our most important obligations, and they reinforced our tradition's most sacred values. So these 3 weeks are bitter. It's a bitter time as we recall what we have lost. And it's a grievous loss. And that loss we pray that will be restored. Every day we pray for that. This is a time of loss for you and for your family, friends of Anne Kopech. For you have lost this central and powerful presence in your lives. Anne guided you to your highest potential. She instilled the most important values, particularly to her 3 children, grandchildren too, I'm sure, and others. And she lived by those values as well. She had high standards. She did the right things, and she insisted that you do the same. She was Chicago-born, middle child of Joseph, or Yehuda, and Mary Backrack, sister to Benny and Marty. The family lived a comfortable life on the west side. Anne's father sold ice and coal, which all homes needed, even during the Depression. And, you don't often hear this about Jewish homes during that time in our history, but the Bacharachs had a maid. It didn't often happen in Jewish homes because everyone needed kol anais. Anne was a phenomenal student, which, given what I know about this family, I'm not at all surprised by. In high school, Anne was friendly with a couple of fellow students who would later become central to her life for decades and decades to come, Shirley and Marty Lubowitz, and Shirley is here. Anne's father, Joseph Yehuda, appreciated his only daughter's intelligence, so when she expressed a desire, unusual for the time, as a girl, a desire to attend college, he was supportive. Both parents were supportive and encouraging. And so Anne studied at Roosevelt for 4 years. One day, as a young woman, Anne agreed to be set up on a date. Truth be told, it was not the best first date. Among other things, this young man with a British accent wore on his jacket his World War II medals. Perhaps not so terrible. You know, you want to impress your date first time around. But he also told Anne about the girl who was dating back home in England. That's not how you do it. So Anne just continued to date other people. But her friends encouraged her to give the bloke another chance. And so she did. And so Joe Kopech also exerted his own pressure campaign, giving her an ultimatum. And thank God, her friends pressured her. He gave her the ultimatum. They continued to date, and they married, and this family, Anne and Joe, Yuda, Susan, Robin, and Stephen, came to be. They first lived at Maplewood and Ardmore, and then they moved to their Skokie home near the Evanston border. That home, there's no question, Anne was master of that domain. She insisted on it being a well-ordered home, a clean home, very clean. You can proverbially, or maybe really, lick the floors. If her kids' chores, and they had chores, were not fulfilled properly, their mother would make them do them again, for instance, vacuuming properly. She had other expectations for her 3 children as well. In academics, certainly. In extracurriculars, definitely. Piano, for instance, and more. And you might have heard reverberating through the walls of that home, "Practice, Susie, practice." That was for the piano. And while her children may at times, as young people, have bristled at this insistence, this demanding maternal nature, they do credit their mother and father for what they have become and what they have accomplished. The Kopech family, they were close to Anne's parents, visiting them on Sundays. We didn't talk about it. I imagine this must have been nice for your grandfather. For your father, actually, who was far from his own birth family, to have this family, extended family that you were all close to. Anne had worked prior to marriage. In fact, while employed at Goldblatt's, she introduced a co-worker, a certain Zelda, to her own brother, to Ben, creating another branch of this many-branched family. Anne went back to work when Steve was in first grade, landing an important job planning large meetings and big events for the Nielsen Corporation. That job was really right for her. It capitalized on Anne's organizational skills, attention to detail, and so forth. Her primary attention, though, of course, was the family, primarily on the home. That was her chief concern. She made sure that her kids behaved a certain way, the correct way, read her way. She was also deeply devoted to this great extended family, friends too, to Ben and Zelda, Marty and Marcia and their families, and the Kopech family itself extended over the years to welcome Don and Craig and Karen. And then Anne and Joe became grandparents to Jordana, Joshua, Justin, and Sydney. And the latter 3 who are here will be speaking in a few minutes. Anne was also a devoted Nana, and she was a devoted Nana, and when Robin was working, she would take care of her oldest grandchild, Jordana. She took special joy in these great family events, the holidays, the celebrations, and so forth. She took hosting very seriously. Seriously, but with a very happy heart, too. And true to her determination that everything come out just as it ought to, she would affix notes to the refrigerator to help her organize those family occasions. Besides the domestic adventures, Anne enjoyed far-flung adventures too. She and Joe would travel, went to Europe, visited Israel, frequently traveling with Marty and Shirley and Jeanette and Sonny. Good times. Good times. But this is life. And with joy and fulfillment comes, inevitably, at some point, sadness and loss. And her husband, Joe, died when Anne was about 72 years old. Her devotion to and care for her husband enhanced his life and extended his years as well. Theirs had been what you guys described to me as a 50-50 partnership in marriage and child rearing. They were on the same wavelength. So it was a significant loss. But Anne, as one of you commented, moved on in a different way. She was not one to indulge in her grief, at least not to display it. And so move on she did. And in fact, in the latter years, the more recent years of her life, she accomplished quite a lot. She traveled on her own to London to visit Jordana. She also became bat mitzvah in partnership with Robin at Temple Bethel about 15 or so years ago. Cantor Kim Harris, worked with mother and daughter to help them prepare for that great event, and I was really honored, still feel the honor to be involved as well. And Cantor Kim and I were texting about the loss of your mom, and I know that you reached out to her, so we were sending sad emojis to each other. I remember that beautiful service that Anne and Robin, you led, and I would say Anne's desire to become a bat mitzvah at that stage reflects her desire to her tradition, to Judaism. Of course, it reflects her intelligence as well as her determination and her forward-looking nature. She had always been involved Jewishly. She had served as co-president of Sisterhood. She headed up its gift shop as well. But of course, her greatest accomplishment of all, of course, once again, is the family, which has continued to expand to include Angus and Emily, as well as Sarah and Eli, and of course, Anne was a great nana to Ari. As King Solomon wrote in Proverbs, "Dor holech v'dor ba." Ecclesiastes, a generation goes, a generation arises. And that's what has happened. Anne Kopech, she lived her life on her own terms. And central to that life was her innate, and I would say maybe also cultivated desire, really determination to create a foundation, an extraordinarily strong foundation in every way for the generation that she was helping to arise, that she was bringing to be, that she helped to create and nurture and guide. So may Anne Kopech's example of this loving determination always be an inspiration to all of us. And Zichrona Livracha, may her memory always be for blessing. Amen. Anne's family is very grateful to the care provided recently by Virginia and Lena. They're also very deeply appreciative to Rabbi Gershon Seif, who is here, and it's my honor to call forward Rabbi Seif to offer a few words.
It's interesting to describe a person that you barely spoke to, because Anne couldn't speak very many words. She would say a word or two. Sometimes I got a short conversation, but every time I spoke with Anne, her eyes perked up. She gave me a very warm smile. When she felt something strongly, you knew it. And it's very interesting. You know, I saw, I'm not going to get into all the details, but the family knows what I'm talking about even recently, that when there was a reason to get tough the family got very tough. And at the same time, it was very soft and very loving. And those are the two things that I saw with Anne. I can testify, how long was it, a year or so that we've known each other, more? 18 months. Those are the two things, if I never said a word to her, I would tell you those two things about Anne. First of all, when she didn't want to eat, she was adamant. When I say adamant, her lips were so tight. It was just the day before she passed away that I was with her. And the attendant there it was June, I think. He was trying so hard to give her, her nutrition, and her lips were so tight, and she knew exactly what she was doing. She just did not want lunch or something. At the same time, that same person could give you the softest, most loving smile. Same person. I just want to share something with you about people at that stage of life that I've come, because of my work, see a lot of people at this stage. People assume something I think that's very incorrect, at least certain books that I've read that teach us that it's incorrect, about the whole business of what the world to come is and our preparation for the world to come. People think it's kind of, I'll put it in modern terms, although what I'm really telling you comes from two places where the chief disciple of the Vilna Gaon, Chaim Volozhiner, writes this in two places. One in his introduction to his commentary to the Ethics of the Fathers, another place in another one of his books, third chapter, in Nefesh HaChaim. But he writes as follows: you think that what you're doing in the course of your life is you're like going to a game room, and you get all these tickets, in the end you go to the glass counter and you get your plastic prizes. But your whole life you're busy collecting tickets, all your good deeds. And then you go upstairs and you cash in, and they give you all the stuff. And he says that's not how it works. He gets it from the introductory words there in Ethics of the Fathers. Kol Yisrael yesh l'cheved le'olam haba. All of the Jewish people have a portion, and the word is le, which is the prefix. The letter lamed means to, towards the world to come. It should have said, according to this understanding, be'olam haba. It's waiting for you. You go there, and in that spot, when you get there, when you show up to the glass counter, in that spot, you got to park, because you present your good deeds, and then you cash in. But it doesn't say that, because the letter lamed means something else. So he explains as follows: as we're traveling through this world, we are actually the souls within us, and we are currently in the world to come. But we're so covered with layers that we're not sensitive to that. We are constantly changing who we are in our core being with everything we do. We're going through life, and we're complicated people. We do good, we do bad, and all of that's making an impact on who we are in our core. So we have a portion towards the world to come, because we're always heading towards there. The world to come deep inside ourselves. When we get upstairs, it's not like a person is buried, there's a helicopter comes and they take you to some spot that we've been waiting for you, and now come to this spot. That's not how it works. Our soul is already deeply, deeply connected to the spirit for our whole life. But we're not doing that because we're so coated with layers. And when we pass away, the layers are peeled away, and what we made of ourselves is who we are. That's the core being. So I can tell you, I can testify without many conversations that the core being was present at all times. A tough lady with a beautiful, beautiful smile that she always had for me. I was told not everyone gets that smile. I was lucky. I was very fortunate that every time I came, they couldn't wake her up. For me, she smiled. I was very lucky. Sometimes I played the Jewish music, sometimes other stuff. I didn't know that her father sold ice, because I remember once asking her, you're in 97, I bet you remember when you had an icebox. I had no idea when she smiled. That's because there was a reason why I didn't know that. But those are the kind of conversations, it was almost a monologue. I was speaking and she wouldn't really respond, but she would nod and smile, and I was presuming things she was understanding. But what I really came to share with all of you was not just that Anne was a tough and a sweet lady, but the family and the dedication that the family had. That I personally can testify to with many conversations. Many long, especially, Sue and I, we talked a lot about Jewish ideas, and there's a lot of passion, a lot of honor for your parents that I witnessed from all of you. And there's a reason why in the Ten Commandments, why even though the first 5 are between man and God, and the second 5 are between man and man, why is honoring your parents on that side between man and God? Because it's a very godly thing, honoring a parent, and there's a lot of passion and I have a lot of lessons to learn from my encounters, my conversations with all of you. God should just give you comfort, and you should only know from joy from this point forward.
Thank you, Rabbi Seid. Please call forward 3 of her 4 grandchildren, Josh, Justin, and Sydney.
Growing up, some of my happiest memories were at Nana's home.
Sure. Growing up, some of my happiest memories were at Nana's home. I loved going there to sit and talk with her, and especially to swim. I'd call and ask if she could take me to the pool at her building, and she was always happy to accommodate me. Even if she had plans with her friends, she would cancel them to spend time with me. After swimming, we would go back to her apartment, and we would sit in the family room watching TV, talking about school, my friends, and just life in general. When I was 6 weeks old, my papa just passed away, so it was important to Nana that I knew who he was. So she loved to tell me stories about him and her parents. What I loved most, though, was all the pictures Nana had of all generations of our family. My favorites, though, were of me. Nice. Also, there were many more of them that were of my brothers. Thank you. One of my favorite memories of Nana, though, was when she took my flat Stanley to Florida for the winter when I was in elementary school. I had a class project where we had to send Flat Stanley on adventures and write about what he did. Nana sent me pictures of her and Flat Stanley doing all sorts of things around Florida: swimming, shopping, going to restaurants, the works. It made my project so fun and special. Nana made everything more meaningful. I remember going to lunches with her, just the two of us. She would drive us to a restaurant and stores to shop around, and I always wondered how she could see over the steering wheel while she was driving. Going back to shopping, Nana loved to shop. If Nana taught me anything, it was to spend all my money on clothes I do not need. Nana always knew how much I loved to cook and bake. When I was about 13 years old, I had this idea that I wanted to become a baker. I'd always complained to my mom how we did not have a KitchenAid mixer and how much I hated to have to mix my ingredients by hand. Nana, however, did have a KitchenAid mixer, and she graciously gave it to me as a gift. Just an accurate representation of who she was as a grandma. Lastly, I knew how much Nana loved me and how proud of me she was. She always encouraged me in my educational pursuits. Her encouragement helped me to achieve a master's degree in speech pathology. Ironically, my degree led me to help our family diagnose her with aphasia, which robbed her of her ability to communicate with us. Although Nana couldn't speak, my last visit with her recently, her whole face lit up. She gave me the biggest smile, like I'd just made her whole day, and she wouldn't stop staring at me because she was so happy. It reminded me of how special she always made me feel. I love you, Nana. I will miss you. Rest in peace. I didn't bring mine out, so I gotta pull out my phone. Thank you. Yeah, she's a lot shorter than me, so. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for gathering here today to celebrate the long, fulfilling life of my grandmother, or as we refer to her, Nana. Today is much more than a day of mourning, but rather is a day of celebration. A celebration of a life well lived, and the life of somebody whose love is constant and forever present, even as we sit here today. Nana was one of the keystones of the Kopech family, whether it be a day at the pool, as Cindy referred to earlier, milestone achievements, or family dinners for holidays, or just so the family was together. Nana was always there. To Nana, there was no bigger meaning to life than her faith and her family, especially her grandchildren. Sometimes it felt as if she had the ability to be in two places at once, just so she wouldn't be able to miss a single moment of her lives. It wasn't just that she attended our events, it was how she made us feel when she was there. Like we mattered, like we were seen, supported, and deeply loved. Her presence was a gift, one she gave freely again and again. What an honor it was for us to be able to say that she was able to witness two of her grandchildren get married, meet her great-grandchild, all her grandchildren graduate college, and also see me start my journey in the medical field as a doctor. One of us could be the president, but I assure you that if you asked her, she'd be the first to tell you that one of her grandchildren was a doctor. Outside her family, her Jewish faith was also the foundation she stood on. And from it, she offered grace and wisdom. She didn't need to speak loudly to be heard. And no, I'm not mocking her height. It's gonna be a lot of height jokes today. Her life spoke for her. A life of kindness and a life of devotion. Her legacy goes much beyond the photos and the memories of special events. Her legacy is in what she passed down to all her grandchildren and how it shaped us into who we are today. And the values she taught us, the love she gave us, and the examples she set for us on how to live a life of meaning. She'll be missed terribly, but I assure you she will rest peacefully knowing how much she deeply impacted the lives of everybody in this room today. Thank you, Nana, for everything. We love you always.
Those are two tough acts to follow. So as I sat down to write this, I really struggled with what to say. Not so much because I didn't have anything to say, but I always find it really hard to describe someone you love so much and all the amazing things about them in such a short amount of time. So what I thought I'd do is just share a few life lessons my grandma taught me and some quick stories to help paint that picture of what it was like to have the privilege of calling her my Nana. The first thing that came to mind to me actually was that she really taught me to learn to laugh at myself. Now that probably isn't the first thing you think of when you think of Ann Kopech. Humor wasn't really her thing. But when it came to grandchildren, things were a bit different. So for those of you that knew Ann, you knew that she was independent, strong, driven, and a smart woman. However, what she wasn't was tall. On a good day, she stood an intimidating 4'11". And for me, back as a middle schooler who was finally hitting a growth spurt, being taller than people, especially adults, was a pretty big deal. So on days we had plans to go see Nana, while she was anxiously awaiting to see her grandchildren and give them all a hug and a kiss as they walked through the door, I was anxiously awaiting the opportunity to go back to back with her and see who was taller. It had to be a pretty humbling experience when your grandson walks in and starts sizing you up like two boxers do before a fight. The second he walks in the door. No kiss, no hello, just standing on my tippy toes to see if I could see over her. That all being said, she found the humor in it and really always just brushed it off. She was always laughing along with us as the trend continued with Justin, who, as you can tell, was probably taller than her at birth. And even Sydney, and that one probably had to hurt. No matter how many short jokes we made, which I'm surprised Justin didn't make too many in his speech, or how many times we had our dad measure us versus Nana, she was always willing to play along, like I said. And whether she intended to or not, she was teaching us to never take ourselves too seriously, and to laugh at the little things, especially at yourself, because life is just a little bit more enjoyable that way. The next thing Nana taught us was the importance of family. I often look forward to the various holidays growing up, just like anyone does, but especially the Jewish ones. This meant a few things. One, the whole family was getting together at Nana's, and two, that if it was Passover, then the same bottle of kosher Passover ketchup was coming out of the back of the fridge. Apparently she thought that if something had a K for peace stamp on it, that it never expired. Seriously, I swear the bottle might have been as old as me when she threw it out. Now, she also probably really hates that I'm telling you all this because, as Rabbi alluded to, she was an immaculately clean and tidy person. Something, unfortunately, that she didn't teach me, though, because you can just ask my wife or my mom, I'm not very clean. But on a serious note, those were actually some of the best memories. We'd all be in one place all week for those special occasions, and Nana would spend each day prepping her home and some of her various famous recipes, especially my favorite, her sweet and sour meatballs. Something I demanded she made just about any time we were together. And she always came through, even though one time she actually tore her rotator cuff and she still was up for the challenge to cook. That just was who she was as a grandma. And it came as no surprise because she would do anything she loved for the people. She would do anything for the people she loved. And as I was reflecting, those were the things I kept coming back to. I remember when we were kids and she moved into her condo in Northbrook. Being the annoying kids we were, we'd constantly be running all around her house and causing a ruckus, typical kid stuff. Living in a predominantly senior community, naturally the cranky lady below her would always call and complain every time we were over about how noisy we were. So what did Nana do? Tell us to stop having fun? Obviously not, of course not. No, instead she decided to put in all new hardwood floors so that we could be as loud as we wanted and wouldn't bother anybody except for the people in her home. But it's the things like that you don't appreciate as a kid, but as you think back, it really is a great depiction of who she was as a grandma. Like I mentioned, she'd do anything for the people she loved most. Well, those are just a few quick stories and lessons I learned from my Nana. There are plenty more that come to mind in her almost 98 years of life. And while the last few had been difficult, she still maintained that strong and independent mentality for as long as she could. While I know she's in a better place, and that gives me comfort, I certainly miss her every day. And I want to just say thank you to her for everything she taught me in the time we had together. I honestly wish I thought to do it while she was still here. Love you, Nana.
Those were all charming, warm, and funny tributes to your Nana, so thank you so much. Her son, Steve.
Raise it a little. So, not much. Well, we heard a lot of short jokes today, and you know, it's funny, before I actually start my speech, we were regaling stories the other night, my siblings and my brother-in-law Craig, and we were sitting around our dining room table, and I have to back up 1 second though. My cousins, Rick and David, they talked about a time when their father of blessed memory, Benny, came to them in a dream at the same time, and Rick told me about this, and I was like, I said, and look, it's okay if I swear, everybody knows I do that all the time, you know, I always said, damn it, 25 years my father never came to me in a dream or anything, and the reason I'm telling this story is because we're sitting around the table telling Ann stories, and we were talking about the fact that she didn't have a sense of humor, and all of a sudden the lights started flickering. And it just freaked us all out. So I guess that was my mom's way of telling us to cool it. She didn't have a great sense of humor, but she would often say, "Don't laugh at my expense." But she actually she was a kind of a funny lady. But anyway, getting back to my actual speech. So, as we now have heard from all my kids, we know, and anybody that knew my mom knew she was a tiny lady. But she was a real force to be reckoned with. And she lived her life really guided by 3 pillars. Family first, always. A strong moral and ethical compass. And her Jewish faith and traditions. You probably noticed in the pamphlet about an Eshet Chayil, and that's what she aspired in her life to be. An Eshet Chayil is generally translated as a woman of valor. It's from a poem in chapter 31 from the book of Proverbs. And the biblical poem is commonly understood as an ode to feminine strength and qualities. But it's also been interpreted as referring to someone very specific. For example, one of its verses reads, "Many women have displayed strength, but you have risen above them all." And it's that strength and determination that Mom possessed that enabled her to live her 3 pillars and pass them on the best way that she knew how to her 3 children and her 4 grandchildren. growing up on the west side of Chicago, Mom was very devoted to her parents, Mira and Yuda, and brothers Benny and Marty. Mom was the middle child, and in some ways suffered middle child syndrome in her formative years. Her youngest sibling, her Uncle Marty, always said he was Jesus. But I think he joked about that because my grandparents' English names were Mary and Joseph. But my mom took it literally. She treated him like he was. And her childhood and early familial experiences dictated her priorities for the rest of her life. She lived at home with her parents until she married her true love, her father, Joe. And then they, as a married couple, lived under her parents' roof for a short period of time. To me, it's a wonder, under those circumstances, how our eldest sister, Susan, was ever conceived. But she was, and it was time for them to move to a larger home. And move they did, but not alone. Instead, they purchased together with my grandparents and lived together in a 2-flat apartment on Maplewood Avenue in the Arcadia Terrace neighborhood, which Sue and I argued about was either Arcadia Terrace or West Rogers Park. Sue won. Anyway, getting back to this, we lived in the apartment on the first floor, and my Bubby and Papa lived on the second floor. We lived in a 2-flat until I was 5 years old, when my mom finally decided she could leave her mom and get our own home, and we moved to Skokie, where they bought our house on St. Louis Avenue. During these years, my fondest memories, however, was of the entire family getting together. All of us, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, Rena and I recently, my cousin Rena, we were reminiscing about those times and how wonderful they were. And those are the things that stick with you forever. We all got gathered for Shabbat dinner at my grandparents', and of course, all the major Jewish holidays were at my grandparents' home on North Shore Avenue. When it became too difficult for our Bubby to host the holidays, my mom automatically, and I must say authoritatively, took over as the family matriarch. It was expected that the entire family would now attend all major holidays, Pesach, Rosh Hashanah, break fast, at our home in Skokie. And you weren't invited, you were summoned. In all seriousness, Mom was a real balabusta and made the holidays a warm, traditional, and spiritual event. After Bubby's death in 1972, Mom's priority continued to be her family, our dad, her children, and of course her father, brothers and sisters-in-law, and her nieces and nephews. Papa was invited to move in and live with us now. She would never allow my sisters and I to remain angry with one another after a disagreement. We were always expected to make shalom bayit. If we didn't, she inserted herself into the problem and solved it for us. She would always say, once Dad and I are gone, you only have each other. She took great care of her father until his passing, took on the role of caregiver to my father when he became incapacitated by emphysema, was caregiver for her granddaughter Jordana when she was an infant and toddler, and she was a comforting presence for both of my uncles as they transitioned to their next journey. She took great pride in all of our accomplishments, and not just her own children's, but her nieces and nephews as well. And of course, as we married and started our own families, she quelled with every grandchild's birth and later accomplishments, witnessing them to pursue their respective passions as an educator, a financial data wizard in Josh's case, a doctor, and also a speech pathologist. More recently, she was so happy and proud to witness the family expand with the birth of Jordana and Angus's son, my mom's great-grandson, Ari, and then, of course, the marriage of Joshua to his college sweetheart, Emily. Mom always played by the rules. She was honest, forthright, and strong. She instilled in us respect for our elders, hard work ethic, and taught us always to do the right thing. Nothing was ever handed to us. We had to earn it, and we better not cheat. And as was noted before, she was ahead of her time. She attended college at Roosevelt University, majoring in business, and was an event planner for the A.C. Nielsen Company. Education was important to Mom, and she instilled that importance into us all. But she especially wanted her daughters and granddaughters to have the opportunities that most women of her generation were deprived of. Consequently, my sisters became professionals in fields that were traditionally dominated by men. And Jordana and Sydney earned advanced degrees in their respective fields as well. And that made her very, very proud. I was her biggest disappointment, however, because she always dreamed that I would become a rabbi. My friends who are sitting in the back know that I was sent off after junior high to Hebrew day school, or to Hebrew high school, and torn away from my friends from Evanston Township, and attended Ari Crown Day School. And her biggest dream was for me to become a rabbi. But I became a measly accountant instead. And also, by the way, transferred the heck out of that school and went back to public high school with my friends. Thank God for my dad. But her achievements and the lessons she taught us along the way will continue to inspire us for years to come. She lived her life guided by the principles of her Jewish faith, instilling in us the values of compassion, kindness, and justice. Her unwavering faith provided her with strength and resilience, and she found joy in the traditions and rituals that connected her to generations past. Her commitment to her faith was evident in the way she celebrated Shabbat, the holidays, and in her everyday acts of kindness and generosity, and her involvement in the shul. It was important to her that we marry within our faith. I gotta admit, I gave her and my dad a few scares along the way to meeting Karen, but that was very important to them. And we passed this on, of course, to our kids. And, you know, as we understood these dynamics to be so relevant to our family, I truly believe that Mom lived as long as she did because she was a very social person and was always surrounded by friends. Even though she was somewhat shy and unassuming, people were drawn to her. She was really loved by so many, including her caregivers at Elevate Abington and Moments Hospice. They always told us how special and sweet she was. As we say goodbye, we hold on to the love and lessons she shared with us. Her spirit will live on in our hearts, in our traditions that we will continue, and in the way we treat each other and other people. In her memory, let us strive to live with the same kindness, generosity, and faith that she embodied. Let us honor her by carrying forward the love and values she instilled in us. Her life was truly a blessing, and her memory will be a source of comfort and inspiration for all the generations to come. Mom, may your soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life, and may we find peace and solace in the beautiful legacy that you leave behind for us. Rest in peace. You deserve it. You're forever loved, forever cherished, forever in our hearts.
Those are beautiful remarks. Thank you so very, very much. לידה היא ראשית, פטירת תכלית החיים כמסהם, כהליכת צמיחה משלב לשלב. Birth is a beginning, death a destination, life a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage. Now the life journey of Ann Kopech has reached its final destination as we now rise for the memorial prayer, the El Malay Rachamim. El Malay Rachamim, Shochein Bamronim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kafei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Tehorim, Tezoha Harakim Ashirim, Et Nishmat Characha Bat Yehuda Umiriam, Shalcha Le'olama, Bal Harachamim Yasirecha, V'Seter Kenafav Le'olamim, V'Tzur HaChaim Et Nishmata, Ranai V'Nechalatam, V'Tanua V'Shalom, Amishkava, V'Nomar. Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence with the holy and the pure who shine like the light of the heavens to Ann Kopech, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence and within the shadow of your wings. Let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and we say, Amen. You may be seated.
We're now going to be going to the grave. We will form a short funeral procession actually facing east, but the section is all the way on the west side of the cemetery. It's in the rose section. And the family will have pallbearers. I'll announce them in just a moment. The family then is returning to the home of Stephen and Karen Kopech, 101 Old Barn Court in Buffalo Grove, today until 9, and then Tuesday and Wednesday from 5 to 9. That information's in the pamphlets that we've handed out. The following have been asked to act as pallbearers. So that would be Joshua Kopech, Justin and Sydney Kopech, Eli Bublik, Steve Wertheim, and Lloyd Bacharach. Is that right? So, pallbearers, I'm going to ask you to come up, and because of the narrowness, we're going to make our way out. When we get out in the hallway, you'll be able to go onto the handles, and we're going to ride up in the elevator. This is done in shifts with the elevator because of the number of people here. We're not going to leave for about 10 minutes or so. There are washrooms down here or up on the main floor, but it will take a few elevator rides before we get everyone up. There are stairs past the elevator if you feel like you can handle the stairs. At this time, if everyone would please rise and if the pallbearers would come forward. Again, pallbearers are going to follow behind until we get out to the lobby.
Volumem Prava Marmatra. Solvasar Katsir Kochas Sofitsis Asadeh. The base Katsir Navatis, who walk around the Bravo. I think the base Katsir Navatis,
Pallbearers, you can make your way out of here.